Oh, good Lord. And you can see where I whacked myself in the head. Yeah, it's pretty visible. All right, cool. Glad I'm going to wait a few days before I shoot the follow-up video to my stupid donut experiment. Such is life. Life is a mess. So what did we do? We did Buffy last, right? We had Blade Runner and Stargate. Did we do Blade Runner? I think we did Blade Runner, right? We talked about that. And it's too hot. I'm going to turn the AC on. I don't care if it makes background noise. It's too freaking hot in here. It's like 87 degrees in this room. Thrum, hummity hum hum. Ooh, that does feel nice. Okay, so YouTuber. Let's see what we looked up last time. So, it's interesting to see the things that I watch filtered through. All right, so YouTube Studio und the videos. What did we do last time? Last time we did Blade Runner. Okay, so we did a Blade Runner, and we had. Okay, trying to remember. This was. What was I doing? I originally thought about doing something that involved taking over the bodies of other beings. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this last time we were doing Blade Runner, it was sort of translating itself over into a wolf's reign concept. So essentially, the wildlife of the world had gone extinct, or was going extinct, actively going extinct, and they had created synthetic ones to fill those ecological niches and help bolster the numbers and populations to help them spread. But in order to help them function and more carefully avoid the hazards, so they'd give some of these artificial beings planning capabilities, the thought processes on a level that's in advance of animals and more closely parallels humans, but they're artificially created, so nobody really considers them really alive. But as a consequence, you have these human minds essentially in animalistic form. And these beings are confronted with the prospect of not really necessarily belonging to the animals that they belong to. As stupid as it is, I think Futurama did a version of this story where they had the intelligence creating hat that they gave to a chimpanzee. And he struggled with the fact that he didn't belong in the world of the animals because his mind wasn't an animal's mind. But he didn't belong in the realm of the humans because he was not a human. And that same sort of issue kind of comes into play for some of the characters. But there's also that sort of drive for the right for your people to continue. And I feel like there's room for that discussion between the idea of you could have multiple animals, different animals from different species, more closely identify with one another than they identify with the species of their physical form, or humans in general. But I do think there's also an interesting element to tell in a story about how those synthetic animals try to blend into the world, or monopolize or use the world, monopolize on their abilities to use the world at a human level of intelligence. So you have wolves and ravens and bears and dolphins and octopus and things like that who are viewing themselves as different nationalities of a race of beings almost, despite the fact that physiologically they are not anything alike. But their commonality and identity would be something that they would get from the concept of being human minds in non-human forms. So I think there's place to do some of that. I do think it's a worthwhile story. It was enough that it stuck pretty reasonably in my head for a few days, as just something to contemplate and play with, despite all of what's gone on. God, so frustrating. I mean, I repaired the laptop up from it's destroying its hard drive, got it up and running, installed an operating system on it. And then, like right before work the other day, the operating system needed to do an update. So it did the update and just destroyed itself. And so I had to reinstall that. And so that was an all-day process that obliterated everything that I had been working on. And I had to go through a couple days of trying to get it back up and running to the level I need it to run. And now it's giving me trouble about its ability to charge the battery. So yeah, it blew the hard drive. Then a couple weeks later, it blew the operating system, and now it's blowing the port for powering it. So, I mean, it's something I can fix, but it's just so frustrating to know that like 3 times in a month that thing has wrecked itself. And theoretically, once I get the power systems up and running again, it should be fine indefinitely. But it's just, at this point, so many things have gone wrong with it, I'm going to have trouble trusting it. But, oh God. And it's really been frustrating the last few days. I've been trying to get the last big thing I need to get done. Usually I have 2 months in the first half of the year that are busy months for me. It's April, it's getting all the information and all the documentation I need together to do my taxes, and June, which is my birthday month, where I have to do all my car registration, re-register my mailbox, all that crap I have to do in June. It's harder to do all that because right now they postponed the taxes. The operating system is Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is one of those systems where it's fiddly. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever used Windows 3.11, where in order to find certain files that you saved from a document making program, so if you used Microsoft Word on a 3.11 machine and saved the document you made, it didn't appear as an icon on your hard drive. You had to go into DOS prompts, dig up the drive that you know you recorded it on, and then search through like your memory. Like if you were to use Windows 3.11 and you wrote a document and you saved it, you would have to remember, like write in a notebook, what the name of that file and the path you had to take to get to it. It was an absolute pain in the ass. And I hated it. I hated Windows 3.11. And the problem I have with Ubuntu is it reminds me too much of it. With Ubuntu, if you have the operating system Ubuntu on there, it's not quite as bad as going through DOS prompts to get to stuff, but I can write a document, save a document, and have the document appear in my documents folder. So that's not as bad. But if you're downloading something that you need to add for like a video editing software, or this is something I had to do for OBS on that system. I was trying to install OBS on that because it's one of the few video recording and editing softwares that is workable in Ubuntu. So trying to use that, tried to download that, it says, in order to install this program, you have to open up the, I forget the name of it, but it's essentially a DOS prompt window, and type in coding instructions on how it's supposed to install it on the machine. And I was like, I really don't want to deal with this. And so one of the things that I was just accepting the fact that I wasn't going to use that as a primary video recorder and editor. That was going to be a computer I can access the internet, write documents and whatnot on the go, and translate them over to other machines. What happened was it'd only been a couple weeks since I installed Ubuntu, and when it went to a couple weeks had gone past, it said checked for updates, found these new updates, we need to install them. And I went, all right, install the updates. And it says updates, or I actually might have said there was an issue with the update installation, and it needs to restart. And so I hit restart. It went to restart. It couldn't frickin' load the operating system anymore. And so I had to pop in my external boot thumb drive, put it in there, load it up, and I pulled up the there's some features, and it says like unable to use the current system. I could go in and reinstall Ubuntu with 3 options. One of them was erase the entire drive and reformat it with a new copy of Ubuntu. That'll obliterate all of your things. The next one was reinstall Ubuntu, but try to maintain your current files. And then the third one was customize how you want this to go. And so I tried to do the reinstall Ubuntu while maintaining my files, and it started the process and then said, you didn't correctly set some code path, so go back and fix it. So I went to try to go back and fix it, and it crashed the reinstallation, rebooted back into it, and then I got into it. Now it only had 2 options, wipe your drive or custom. I went into custom, and I spent 15 freaking hours trying to get the bloody thing to reinstall, just reinstall and maintain a partition even that I could pull my files off of, but it couldn't do that. It wouldn't work for me. And maybe if I spent 3 months learning how to code internal parts of the kernel of Ubuntu, I could have figured a way to save it. But frankly, I didn't care that much. I lost 3 things. One of them was a download that I had for $25 that I hadn't backed up in the last couple days before that crashed. But other than that, fuck it. I did not have the time or the patience to care to try to fight this thing, learn on another computer how to rebuild an Ubuntu system when it shouldn't have crashed in the first place. And so I was just so angry at it. I just wiped it clean, erased the whole disk, and restarted from scratch. And so I spent the next couple days rebuilding everything in the system that I needed to get back up and running, and got it up to the point where it was running. And then within the last day or two, where I was getting to the point where I was getting ready to pop it out there with the camera and the microphone to do some recording again. And I've known for a little while that the port that I use to attach the power to the computer has occasionally been sending the signal that it's unplugged and then replugged over and over and over again. And it seems to be something that like usually happens when I'm moving it and the cord may twist. And so maybe it's not making a complete connection. I don't know. But it usually only happens when I have it in my lap and I'm doing something with it. I've had it a couple times make that noise when it was sitting alone over in the corner, which suggests to me that there might be something else going on. But we've also had massive heat waves where the computer has been struggling to keep itself cool. So I don't know what the issue is, but last night or the night before, I got up to look at something, and I got back to the computer and noticed that the indicator for the battery charging while it's on the cord sometimes is just a battery telling you how much charge is left, suggesting that it's not charging right now, despite it being plugged in. It doesn't matter anymore because it won't give me either of those features. It won't tell me how much the battery has remaining on its charge, and it won't tell me it's charging when it's plugged in. And worse, if I look at the outside, there are those two indicator lights telling you whether it's powered on and whether it's plugged in. Powered on will show up. Plugged in doesn't light up. So to me, I'm suspicious about one of two things in that case. I'm suspicious that it either means that the cord I use to plug it in is not carrying a clean power signal all the way through it, or the port it plugs into may have partial disconnection of internal wires. In all likelihood, it's the latter of the two, but it may still be the first one. I can go onto Amazon, and the replacement for the power cord is like $15. Not a problem. The replacement for the port that it plugs into is also like $15. So that's not a huge problem to get both of those. And the plug, the outlet that it plugs into on the computer, that isn't super difficult to do. I have to crack my computer open the case without breaking anything in the process, please. And once I'm in there, it's a line that runs. I may have to pull out the motherboard to access where it plugs in, but pull out that plug, I can swap in a new one. And quite frankly, if what I think is the case, then the one that's in there currently could probably be fixed with just resoldering the wire to it. But it's like, it's not something I needed to be worrying about right now. And I still need to do my taxes, and every time I start to get started with that process, that fucking thing breaks on me. And I was just like, I'm gonna do it on this computer. I'm done fighting with it. But so yeah, I'm just kind of like tired of it giving me crap. I'm sure I can get it up and running for just like $30 to $40. Ideally, I replace the battery at the same time because it's a built-in battery, not a slide-out battery. So if you're going to crack it open, you should replace the battery at the same time. Batteries are like $50 to $60 a piece for this thing. So I don't really want to drop $60 on a battery when that one still holds a charge for about an hour. So I'm thinking I'm probably just going to see about seeing what it's doing right now, because the Ubuntu operating system has lost all ability to check in on how much charge the battery has, and it no longer tells you if it's plugged in. But there is a means to go into the operating system and see if it registers that the cable is in place. And it does. And not only is it registering that the cable's in place, but it does it without that dropped back in place problem that it had both in Windows and the early stages of the Ubuntu installation. So I don't know what's going on. It could be the operating system, could be the cable, and it could be the plug that it goes into. And I'm just like, I don't know, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about it. I'm going to use it. If it's not pulling a charge anymore, then it's going to eventually hit a point where it dies. And then I'll worry about reinstalling the plug outlet and getting the replacement for the cord and see what I can do to solve that problem. If I can't solve either of those problems, then fuck it. I've got this thing to work with. I should be able to do something. Yeah, we had a solid week of thunderstorms here too. Okay, well, you have yourself a good night tonight. We're about 20 minutes in. I've covered the replacement for Blade Runner story idea. I think we're good on that one. I think the next one remaining is Stargate. So next time, that's where I'll probably end up doing. Until then, I'm going to work on a few other things tonight, maybe get started on my taxes on this computer, and hopefully be done with it by tomorrow night. And once that's solved, I'm going to just move on with trying to take care of the things that are needing to be done around the house. I'm not going to sweat it too much anymore. Computer's being a pain in the butt right now. And I did whack myself somewhere in the head, and it's still showing up pretty good a day later. Hopefully it heals. Have a good one. Having a wild time.